Chair Fowler and commissioners, appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Kevin Higgins. I'm a retired fire captain from Adair Fire with active over 20 years in the service there, retiring in 2022. I'm also the former emergency manager for Benton County. Still work at the county, but I moved on to become special services manager for the sheriff's office. I was asked to speak on my accounts of fighting fires at the landfill. When I started in Adair Fire, we were still having routine fires at the dump, some of them very big, multiple alarms, and many agencies needed to fight these fires. One particular fire, it's been talked about several times, was big enough to make the Associated Press. That was the fire of 1999. Some of those fires took all night. That one was one of them. Took all night to get out since the fire would be deep into the trash and would often require us to bring in dozers and excavators to move the trash so we could get to the seat of the fire. Fires use a huge amount of water to fight. And the landfill folks, I understand, they hate it when we use tens of thousands of gallons of water to put out their fire. It throws off their leachate. And I know the fuel load is enormous at the landfill. That's why the fires require so many resources to fight. Fighting a fire there is one of the worst locations to fight a fire due to the unknown substances burning. It is so toxic that you basically have to fight the fire on air the whole time. You're wearing an SCBA pack on air for hours, but if you don't go on air, you usually cough and feel sick for days. Who knows what that has done to each of us that have fought fires and not being on air. I often wonder what kind of toxins were released into the air that not only we were breathing, but may have affected the environment. Excuse me. My son was also a firefighter for over 10 years at Adair Fire. Although he did not experience the 1999 fire, we both had similar physical effects after fighting fires at the landfill. We both experienced our eyes got sticky and goopy, and both had burning in our lungs if we weren't on air the whole time. Our lungs would burn for days, and we'd feel lethargic and sick. The smoke was thick, black, and heavy, and you just never knew what was going to be burning next. I imagine a scenario where we had a large wildfire that included the dump. We would have a toxic mess on our hands. A typical wildland crew wouldn't have the equipment or the experience to fight a fire at the dump. And a structure crew would prioritize working on exposures, protecting homes and buildings. That doesn't leave many resources to actually fight the fire that's at the dump with all of its toxins. Over the years, they did start doing something different because fires started to decrease in frequency. The last few I went to started in equipment operating at the dump, and then sometimes would spread to the noxic trash. So we had an equipment fire and a trash fire to deal with at the same time. This often required mutual aid from Corvallis, Albany, and possibly Polk County Fire to assist. In the early days of tarping, I can personally remember fires that were under the tarp, feeling the methane explosions under my feet. Back then, I had to personally make large cuts in the tarp themselves to release the methane buildup so it didn't explode on our crew. I have heard representatives from the landfill say this never happened. I can tell you it did. I was there. I cut the tarps and burped that methane out. So if you weren't there, you can't say it didn't happen. And they weren't there. It was an eerie sensation to feel the weight of the dump exploding under your feet. My son Levi had also experienced the explosion under the tarp and said it was terrifying watching and feeling the fire hitting so many hazardous materials and seeing the color of fire change, which is inherent to toxics. Different toxics have burned differently. I've heard testimony from supposed experts let's say, excuse me, let's say since the 1999 fire, there's only been a few fires. And I realized that the expert last night kind of backpedaled and changed that to that's the only ones he was referring to. But in his earlier testimony, he said there was only a few. I'm also reporting that is not true. I don't remember seeing those experts up there. I have no idea where they got their information. But we had no less than 2 fires per year for many years, and that's being very conservative. And every fire is dangerous because you have no idea what's burning and what's going to burn next. Now, granted, there were fires that were in the equipment that didn't spread to the trash in the dump itself. That was mostly because we being the local volunteer fire department, were able to get there in a timely response and quickly contain the fire to the equipment. The Higgins family moved to Soap Creek in the early 70s. That's where I was raised and have memories of going to the dump as a kid looking for treasures. It was almost flat in the 70s. You could walk up there, rummage through, pick out speakers out of TVs, make a cool stereo system. I did it. That was fun. I was a young inventor, and the dump was a lot different then. My wife and I decided to move back to the Soap Creek Valley in the late 90s to raise our family. Now our son and his wife are considering this as well with their kids. That would be 4 generations. And so for our family, the stakes are high. We want to protect and preserve the beauty and health of the Soap Creek Valley and Benton County. The whole landfill issue is frustrating, and expansion seems to be about greed. I hope the county commissioners that are smart enough to fulfill the commitment made many previous commissioners ago to wind down the landfill, not expand it. Yet again, what a disaster it would be for them to overrule basically 100% opposition to the landfill with only a couple of supportive voices. And those are all money driven. Republic Service, the county itself, and trash hauling companies from outside counties. Nobody else seems to be in support. In closing, 2 things. To be clear, I am 100% opposition of any expansion to the dump. And second, I looked online for Benton County's commitment to the environment. And this is what I found. It should help in your decision-making process. Benton County, Oregon demonstrates a strong commitment to environmental sustainability through various initiatives and plans. The county aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, protect natural resources, and promote sustainable practice in the area like waste management and land use. Thank you for your time. And I also realize I didn't give you my address. Still want it?
I think you may have provided it when you checked in. Is that
okay?
Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you for your testimony this evening. The question I have is, as it relates to firefighting, when you encountered or dealt with and suppressed fires at the landfill, did you find any evidence that there might have been subterranean fires? You talked about the explosions of the methane were just subsurface, but did you see any potential for subterranean or deeper smoldering burning?
Yeah, so there would be times we would be digging 6, 8, 10 feet down. And it might, I've been retired for 3 years now, so I haven't fought a fire in that time. I don't know if it's changed since then, but I kind of doubt it based on the fuel load. So if you want to consider 8 or 10 feet subterranean, that's true. Now, there's way back in the day, there was metals buried in I think in probably the first section that are water reactive. So if you core drilled that and hit water, they can actually have very bad consequences of hitting water reactive materials that are still buried in there. So we didn't ever get that deep, of course, but yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. Appreciate it.